Hello everyone and welcome to first episode of Weekly Fantasy, a Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn talk show inspired by the community, where we will discuss the things that transpired for the last week that affected players and the community as a whole. I am Flavored. I'm joined by Rakuthi from Japan, by the way. He just told me that Yoshi P's office was like 20 minutes away from his place. And I would really like to know, Rakuthi, why the hell aren't you beating on his door yet, asking why are we getting these horrible login errors?
Yeah, I should be. I actually went to the building one time. There's a security on the first floor, so I stayed away.
I'm pretty sure they would have let you if you just told them press here, press, and they would be handsome American. Oh. Anyway, since community doesn't know me or you most probably, well, you might be popular with the legacy players, for all I know. But since the community doesn't really know me or you, we probably should do introductions here. So I would like you to go first.
All right, I'm Rakuthi Sunrise. I'm a legacy player on the Excalibur server. I'm in Order of the Blue Garter. I've been playing MMO since about 1996. I started with Ultima Online, and I've played everything in between. So.
Damn! But tell me, what MMO has been most memorable in your experience? Like, you have to compare Final Fantasy to something, and if you did it, what MMO would it be?
It's actually reminded me a little bit of EverQuest. You know, some of the feelings I had during the beginning of EverQuest are pretty cool, and I'm having those right now. Early progression and whatnot, and just finding new things in a new game. Maybe a little bit of vanilla WoW in there too. So.
I guess that makes sense. On the other hand, I am not really an experienced Final Fantasy player, at least not its online part. I come mostly from the PvP games such as StarCraft and Warcraft 3. I'm also Grandmaster player in StarCraft 2, so we're pretty much like two different sides of the same coin. While Rakuthi is the legacy representative of the original Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 community, I'm what you would call a noob, coming from the games such as World of Warcraft, Rift, and Star Wars: The Old Republic. So I hope you people will enjoy our dialogue, and I welcome you to proceed to today's topics. But if any one of you guys thought that we will immediately start complaining about 10.17 and any of the related server errors, you are mistaken. First of all, we would like to talk a little bit about the game. By no means it will be a review, but for some of you who are not really familiar with the game just yet, I know a lot of you are already at least trying to play, because getting through all of these login errors is just a quest, a heroic accomplishment in itself. Whoops, I've done it. I'm already complaining. Let me cut this out. But anyway, we really need to give you small impression of the game. So Rakuthi, how are you liking the game so far? Is it turning out to be everything you wanted, or maybe there is something amiss?
Almost everything I wanted, but for the most part, I'm very pleased. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the end game content right now, which I was a little bit wary of coming into it. We weren't allowed to test it, obviously, in all the alphas and beta phases. So I was a little bit concerned about the way it turned out, but ended up being pretty well. I guess my only disappointment is the lack of PvP in the game right now, but I know it's coming, so not too worried about it.
I'm so envious of the legacy players. You don't really need to level, but at the same time, you are missing on a pretty damn huge chunk of the game, because, well, you know, Square Enix and Yoshi P in particular did such a great job at creating an impressive storyline. I have to be honest here, storyline in this game is definitely befit of the Final Fantasy name. And what another interesting thing they did about this game, and right now I'm talking from my personal, of course, point of view, is they tied a lot of things here to your story quest, so you're kind of forced to do it if you want to unlock the most interesting stuff in this game. But at the same time, when you go ahead and progress, it's you do not feel like you're wasting time. Like it's amazing how they managed to make an MMO, which has an intrusive, let's call it that, an intrusive single-player part, but at the same time, you do not regret about actually completing it. And personally, from my personal standpoint, I've been enjoying the game so far. They're quite, like, to be honest, I'm impressed. I'm impressed at the game. I was really expecting something much less interesting here, but the graphics. What, for example, how do you feel the graphics currently compared to what it was in the original game in 1.0?
The graphics aren't too different, to be honest. Like the worlds look very similar. I think they're a little bit more polished now. They flow a little bit better. To be honest, actually, like 1.0 had these neat movement animations, and they were very clunky when it came to like actual play. Like, you know, if you wanted to do anything quickly, it was a very clunky system, but it had a lot of like realism tied into it. And I do miss the animations from 1.0. But overall, I think the graphic overall was done very, very well.
What about the sounds and music in the game? Do you consider them an important part of the game at all, or are you all into the content? And
I'm not the typical person that really cares about in-game sounds. I've never played muted because I've always been sort of like an audible type player. Like when, you know, if I hear somebody stealth next to me in PvP or whatever, I know they stealth because I could hear it. You know, some people play muted, and I've never really understood that completely. But I've also never really cared about in-game sound as far as music goes. But I actually have the music playing for Final Fantasy 14, and I've enjoyed it. Like every zone has a very, very interesting soundtrack. A couple of the zones have had some, you know, like annoying songs. They get a little bit repetitive, but for the most part, I think the music is very well done.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. But you got to play the end game content right from the start, basically. Don't you feel like you know, forgetting all about it and just leveling from the start, just to experience the story and feel how it is?
I was actually talking to some friends of mine from my WoW guild actually that they all did a fresh reroll on Gilgamesh, and I told them I was a little bit envious because, you know, it'd be fun to start over from scratch, but at the same time, you know, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Whenever A Realm Reborn launched, we actually had to, in order to unlock the end game, you have to complete the story quest. So I've done the main storyline. I rushed through it, obviously. I didn't get to watch any of the cutscenes, but I can go back to my in room to watch the cutscenes if I want to, and I will when I have some time. I also have Arcanist at level 1, so I do have to level from 1 to 50 eventually on that class. So I'm not missing out on too much, but I'm a little bit envious of my friends that got to start on the fresh server, just because, you know, it feels more like a brand new MMO, and you get to come up and experience everything from the get-go, a brand new economy that gets to, you know, expand from the get-go instead of just something that's already kind of set in place and you're behind on, because people on legacy servers have ridiculous amounts of money, so the economy will be very different.
You know, I've already said that pretty much any newcomer will have to complete story quests to unlock everything in this game. But what about legacy players? Do you have everything unlocked from the start? I don't really know. Like all.
We had to start from the very get-go. We weren't a part of any grand company, anything like that. In order to access Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, Coil, Bahamut, it's all a standard progression. So we had to start from level 1, basically. Just had to go do the level 1 story quest on up until you join the grand company, and every dungeon along the way. We had to do everything that fresh players did.
That's quite interesting. So, what do you think? Will this game be popular with both legacy players and especially the newcomers alike? Does it have what it takes to just grab the player base with both hands and never release it, pretty much like World of Warcraft did back in the day?
I don't think any game will ever quite have the grasp that the original WoW did. I don't think it's possible anymore. Maybe Titan, WoW's follow up, maybe, but for the most part, I think with the current state of MMOs, with everything that's been released in the last 5 years, which I've played most of those games, they've been very very lackluster. Like I've enjoyed certain aspects of certain games. I play Star Wars: The Old Republic. Primarily for the PvP because I don't really enjoy the PvE in that game. So I've found things in games that that work and things that don't. And I think Final Fantasy XIV brings a very vibrant end game that has been missing from other new releases. Is the best way for me to explain it. I think there's a lot of potential for maybe people that have burned out on WoW, that have been looking for something else that has a very polished end game, a very a nice progression path. A lot of new MMOs don't seem to have that progression path, and Final Fantasy XIV so far does, kind of. There's a gap in there, but there is a nice progression path at the end game that I think a lot of WoW players and players from other games will enjoy.
And you know, hearing you say that, I really think that this nice progression path you're talking about really picks up from the level 1, and like if you start anew and keep doing things following the flow of the game, you will find yourself in the middle of a great adventure, because seriously, it's not just the end game that has pretty good flow, like you say, but it's the whole game. And what I want to ask right now, do you think it has something to do with the fact that for the first time in like ever, this game is not developed by Koreans or Europeans? Is that it's developed by the Japanese, who have been known for being able to deliver like insanely good storyline progressions in the past throughout all of the games that's been coming of Japan. They're all highly praised by the stories and how well they usually flow. Do you think this has something to do with that? Because seriously, this is pretty much the first Japanese MMO of this scale and caliber. Well, anyway, this will be the next question, but tell me what you think about this.
I think that does have something to do with it. The Japanese are notorious for being able to put together, some excellent storylines. Like a lot of the Final Fantasies, I think most gamers, if you're a video game player, you can look back on at least one of the Final Fantasy games and you have some sort of memory associated with it. I mean, for me, it's Final Fantasy 3 or 6, however you want to look at it, and 7, and like I said, I think most gamers can look back at a Final Fantasy and have some sort of relation to it, and Chrono Trigger and other games as well. But another big aspect though is that the developer of Final Fantasy XIV, or the person that took over, Yoshida, I'm sure it's not the first time in history. However, it's one of the first times in recent memory where the developer of the game, whoever had the lead design of the game, was a gamer themselves. And I think that also plays a big part of it. Yoshida was a huge EverQuest player. He was a huge Dark Age of Camelot player. He PvP'd in Dark Age of Camelot for 7 years. And I know he's very passionate about PvP. He's very passionate about MMOs in general. And I know that one of the first things he did when he took over the Final Fantasy XIV team was he went and made them go play Western MMOs. Because Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was... I don't even know what to say about it in the beginning until he took over. But one of the first things he did with his development team was he said, look, go play World of Warcraft. Go play these games. See how they work. See what an MMO is supposed to be like. And I think that has a big thing to do with it as well.
I guess we could say that the Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was out of touch with the times. I guess it had too much of an, well, maybe I could call it old school mentality. But, you know, the other, well, I wouldn't call it mildly popular, but popular MMO that came out of Japan was, of course, Final Fantasy XI, and it was at time it was really attractive to players. Do you think that Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, can outdo that success, and how easily do you think it will be able to do it?
I'm sure that Final Fantasy XI will have its die-hard core of fans, you know, that will never ever accept any other game. But every game has fans like that. But I think that as a standard progression for just the company itself and just in general, I believe that Final Fantasy XIV will be a very good successor to Final Fantasy XI. Yes.
Do you think it will be able to? Well, actually, I'm just really interested in your opinion on this one, since we haven't really talked about this before. But do you think it will be able to outperform every other MMO, with the exception for probably World of Warcraft, because seriously, it has too much of an established base. Do you think it will be able to, well, do just that, outperform every other MMO currently in the market? I don't want to speculate about stuff like Elder Scrolls Online or Wildstar, of course, but everything that exists today.
With what is currently out, there's no reason that Final Fantasy XIV shouldn't take over the #2 slot for subscribers and, you know, whatever other metrics that gaming companies use to say, you know, who's the most popular game right now. WoW won't be overtaken. You know, this isn't the WoW killer by any means. You know, there's not going to be one. But I think for what games exist right now, Final Fantasy XIV should be the second most popular MMO.
So, with that in mind, I guess we both could say that this game is definitely worth to give a try, regardless of whether you've been into MMOs before or not. It has an awesome storyline. It can pretty much be played as a single-player game if you're just into the story and don't really care for a lot of interaction. But at the same time, it's so much more than just a single-player game. It's got very decent graphics. It's got the music and sound on par with any other Final Fantasy game, if you are a fan of the series, and if not, it just has great visuals and audio. It has interesting in-game mechanics, for example, like armory system. You know why? What first got me interested in the Final Fantasy XIV after these years of playing games like Rift, Terra, Swatter, it's the armory system. Never before I actually encountered a system where it can be everything with a single character, and more importantly, where it can be how to say it. It can be interconnected, it can add up to each other. Classes can add up. You can use abilities from a different class and just create something absolutely unique. This I always found awesome, and I hope a lot of other players will find it awesome as well. So, should we recommend this game?
Yeah, I think so. You know, just touching on the armory system real quick, though. You know, I think it's something amazing. You know, I've never been a big fan of alts in most games. Like, I like having my main character, and that's just the character that I like to play. I don't like creating a lot of alts, and I know that some people do. In Final Fantasy XIV, I don't feel like I'm creating an alt when I level a second class. You know, I feel like I'm just expanding on my main character, and that's a cool thing for me. But at the same time, I think for new players, it can also be a little bit daunting because at some point when it comes to min-maxing for PvP or for PvE, whatever you want to do, there's going to come a time where, you know, the class that you chose may not be the best choice, but you know that you're a good player. So if you're a good player, you're going to want to play a different class. So you're going to almost be forced to level those second, third, fourth, and fifth classes, you know, etc. So you know, I think it's a good thing, and it's also could be a scary thing for a new player when they hit certain points of the game.
That's actually a good point. Well, that's basically what people do in the currently existing games, and Final Fantasy XIV kind of simplifies it for a lot of people. So you heard it, guys. If you haven't yet bought this game, it is definitely worth a try. Even if you're not interested in its MMO part, you can definitely play it as a single-player game, and it has a great story writing. It's got a great storyline, so it can be easily played as a single game. And with that being said, it's time for us to actually move on to the topics of today, and we'll start with the discussion on, yes, oh so dreaded login problems in just a second. So this part will probably be the most important part of our today's discussion, because, well, basically it's been the most important part ever since, for every player of this game, ever since open beta phase 4. The login errors, the dreaded 1017 and 90,000 errors, where you either cannot log in because the server is full and asked to try again a little bit later, or where you just get booted for no reason even though your internet connection is all fine, only to encounter that 1017 when you try to log back in. It's an endless circle of errors. So do you think that these things have had a great impact on the game's launch?
Well, like we discussed earlier, I don't think so, to be honest. I think it's actually caused a good deal of anticipation for the players that can't play. They really want to be able to get in and play right now, and I don't think it's turned very many people off, to be honest. I've watched certain streams and stuff like that, and just from what I've seen in the community, the people that cannot play right now, they're just excited to get in to be able to play. So I think as soon as they get these issues corrected, and once they start, with the digital downloads again and everything like that, I think even more people are going to be coming in. So I think it's okay.
But if we take some other games as an example, because every time some other MMORPG starts having problems, there is a great deal of players that leave. Why do you think it will not affect Final Fantasy? Because I don't know, like, is Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn that good of a game that deserves that much attention from people? What exactly? I just don't understand. Because seriously, I can second that. I don't really want to leave this game for whatever reason, and I do not know why. I seriously do not know why. Because if it was any other MMO, I would have just said, well, to hell with you. There are plenty of games to play. But personally, I just cannot do it with this one. So tell me, why can't I leave this game? I really want to understand.
I don't know. I think, it's probably a mixture of the game being pretty good. The story's good, the gameplay is good. The end game, I think people look forward to it and they want to see what's going to come. But I think the bigger thing is that past MMOs that have had issues, I don't know if I actually have a good answer for you. It's a tough one to answer. I think the fact that people are literally not able to play because they stopped the sale of the game is a much different thing than logging in and just lagging. Some MMOs launch and you log in and you lag and you can't actually participate and you do this, that, and the other, and it's like, this is terrible, I don't want to play this anymore. But the fact that some people have just been able to not actually create characters on servers to play with their friends and not been able to purchase the game and things like this, I think it's a completely different situation, and people don't know how to handle it. They're like, well, what do you mean I can't play? I can't buy this game, but these people are playing? Yeah, right, I'm gonna play it as soon as I can. So I just think it's a slightly different situation.
That's actually a very good point. Now that I think about it, when you actually get past all these login errors, you find yourself in a pretty damn polished game. You cannot just go around and find a bug like in most of the other MMOs where raiding is broken, dungeons are broken, something is always broken. But you find yourself in a pretty damn polished world, and even more, this polished world is pretty much alive. Everywhere you go, somebody's doing something, and maybe that is the reason why people want to play. They see that everyone else wants to play. We discussed this a little bit before, but it all looks like a great master plan. Like, just a little bit. It seems like all this was engineered on purpose. So, first of all, like, seriously, there has been already a few articles released where Yoshida-san actually apologized and said that it was not anticipated such an interest. But to be honest, I feel this is an outright lie, because I've been testing this game in closed beta ever since, like, well, pretty much the phase 1. I haven't been in the alpha, but I've been throughout all the phases of closed beta, and it was already obvious that that game was receiving so much attention and interest. Everybody was trying to leak stuff. Everybody was like looking for footage, looking for screenshots, looking for sounds, and the beta forums were insanely active. All the servers were insanely populated. Just seriously, I just don't believe that excuse that they did not anticipate such a volume of players.
Well, yes and no. I think they're being sincere when they say that, because I think that they set up their server infrastructure and their other goals, I think, based on a concurrent login record that existed previously, which was 150,000 concurrent logins for an MMO. I think that was, it was the record. They were like, wow, if we can hit the record, then, that's what we'll base this around. That's what we'll base everything that we're going to do around. And then it turns out that they smashed that record completely, just completely smashed it. So I think there's a little bit of sincerity when they say that they weren't anticipating quite as many as they got. I don't think they anticipated that they were going to smash the concurrent login records for an MMO.
But talking about concurrent record, yes, they released some numbers, but they never said it was unique. They were unique connections or something. Might it be actually the reason, not the cause? So because they were having problems, people constantly. Well, I know myself. When I cannot log in, I just keep spamming that freaking start button, and then my character only to see that 1017 error, and that's pretty much what everyone's been doing just to get into the queue. Might the number of concurrent connections actually be just the reason of problems and not the cause for it?
Maybe. I'm not an engineer or anything, so I can't definitively state anything. It's just my opinion and my guess. I honestly just don't think they quite anticipated this number of users, and of course there's also the issue with the fact that they hard capped the servers to 5,000 logged in players, and that seems high, but to me I think it actually is low, and it doesn't help the fact that they don't have an AFK kick system. The fact that people can just log in and stay idle online for as long as they want, that doesn't help the situation right now. So they'll have to weed out the problems, but we'll see what the maintenance does today. Maybe it'll help.
Yes, it definitely help. It will rectify some problems, but a lot of players are actually worried that while of course they will add the new worlds and for the new people that are coming, of course probably digital sales will be reopened. By the way, if you didn't know, they decided to cut digital sales of the game because, well, it wouldn't help having more people logging in with all these already existing problems. But for the new players, but what happens to all of us who already have established characters? A lot of people are concerned that situation for already established servers will not change at all. They're not offering any free transfers to the people. Pretty much nothing else, and just think about it. All these people have already created characters on the currently existing servers, and they will still be trying to log in to play.
Yeah, I don't know the details of what they're gonna do, in the maintenance. I know they're opening up new servers, but I don't think that's the only thing they're doing. Maybe they have a plan in place. I'm sure they have a plan in place for this 1017. I mean, you know, it's not like they want people to not be able to play their game. They're passionate about creating this game. You know, I watched an interview with Yoshida whenever he was giving a speech about the launch of the game. You know, he broke down in tears. You know, out of both joy and sadness. I think, you know, of just stress overall, but I think it just shows that he's passionate about the game. They want it to work, so I'm sure they have something else in mind besides just opening up new servers. You know, maybe they're lifting the login caps, maybe they're doing other things. I don't know.
But we're talking about all this, but at the same time, you know, the data from the open beta, which actually put a start to all these problems when they first started to appear, all the 1017 90,000 errors, where it all became apparent. Why do you think they didn't act upon this data? I just don't really understand it. It was clear, but in the most recent interviews from Yoshida, he stated that it was only like preliminary data, and everything only became apparent when the game went live. I just don't understand it. The mindset behind it's a little bit weird to me. You might have problems at the start, so basically he's saying, yes, we had this data and a lot of problems during open beta, but there is a chance there will be less players coming at the start, so we're not actually going to rectify them immediately. Don't you think well, actually, we discussed this. Of course, we kind of established that it's all a master plan to make people want to play this game, of course. But still, don't you think that would have alienated some people who would have otherwise been devoted fans of the game? Like, because you know, in open beta. Sorry to interrupt. Just to keep getting the ideas, because in the open beta, the forum was simply flooded with the requests to do something about it, because it was obvious these people weren't just people who wanted to play for free, but most of them already pre-ordered the game, and they were saying, I cannot log in, and I've already pre-ordered. Will this be the same upon the official launch? And pretty much their fears were confirmed as soon as the game went into the early access.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can really say. I'm just a player of the game, so I mean, I don't know. But I mean, I'm sure there's going to be ramifications for the, you know, that people that aren't able to play, you know, that maybe they're going to lose customers over it. But I think, you know, somewhere above Yoshida, there was a deadline that had to be met for launching this game. And whether or not they had their problems in open beta, they had their date that they were going to release the game. And they probably just didn't have the time frame to correct everything, even if they did know it was coming.
But to be honest, even though I'm saying all of these like alienate players, but what we're seeing on the streams, on the forums, everywhere, people are actually want to play this game more and more, and it's even as if all these problems are working towards Square Enix right now. One of the problems that's being discussed on the forums, on social media so far, is the amount of servers actually released on the start. What do you think? 1.2 billion people in Europe and North America got the same amount of servers as the whole Japan, basically the size of California state in the United States.
I think it's a good thing. I honestly do. I think the fact that we have such a limited amount of servers is ultimately a good thing. And case in point, I would go right to Star Wars: The Old Republic, who also launched with a relatively small amount of servers, and then they saw the amount of people that were trying to play their game, and they knee-jerk reacted, and they opened up way too many servers, way too many. Because no matter how good a game is, in today's world, in 2013, the amount of people that are going to stick around for one game is very small. It's not like it used to be. You know, back in the days of EverQuest and the beginning of World of Warcraft, you know, there weren't a lot of options for MMOs. There was only a handful of games that you could play. Now there's so many choices that the player base has become a lot more fickle. and they're going to go to wherever's the most popular game at that time. You know, no matter how good another game is, for the most part, they don't care. And I think the fact that Square Enix started off with a very conservative amount of servers, and then now they're feeling it out and they're going to open up a few more. You know, this doesn't feel like a knee-jerk reaction to me. It feels like it's very thought out. There's a lot of planning going into it, and because I'm sure that they know that while games launch, you know, they're very popular. Eventually, your player base is going to dwindle down and then stabilize at a certain level. So I think, you know, right now, yeah, everything's congested. It's hard to play. You know, there's issues. There's things that are going on that, you know, people don't like. But I think, you know, they're taking their time with it, and by the time, you know, maybe 6 months from now, people will look back at today and say, man, thank goodness they didn't open up, you know, 30 extra servers. You know, thank goodness they didn't do this or that. You know, because everything worked out in the end. You know, that's the only thing you can hope for.
Now, since you put it in that kind of light, yes, I definitely remember the launch of Swatter, and I guess if you think about it from this perspective, it is definitely a good thing they're taking such a slow approach. At the same time, the key point here is that it don't take too long to resolve these problems. Right now, the demand for the game is very high, and the quality of the game, the end product, which we actually received, is pretty high. So Yoshida definitely needs to resolve these problems and allow people to get in. What do you think? What do you think about this game not actually being instanced like every other MMO? Everyone is just stuck in the whole big world. From what I remember, hard cap on the amount of players on the server is 5,000. What do you think about that? Do you think it will cause any problems for the players, like lack of mobs, too crowded of the areas?
I can't speak too much about this from personal experience. I haven't had to deal with it. You know, I'm a legacy player. Most of my classes are already level 50. I haven't had to level, and I've spent most of my time in endgame raids since the game launched. But, however, with that being said, I feel like in 2013, for an MMO to launch without having individual zones and servers instance like that, it is a little weird to me. You know, it makes me wonder if they were lacking the technology to do it, or if they purposely chose not to do it. And if they did purposely choose not to do it, you know, I wonder why. Because I think it doesn't hurt anything. You know, when populations are booming, you know, in the launch of a game, instant servers help out very much. And whenever populations, you know, die down later on, you know, as people out-level certain zones, you know, there may not be a lot of people running around a level 10 zone later on, then it doesn't matter at that point anymore, because a new instance wouldn't be created. So I think the instance servers just make sense all the way around. I'm not sure why Final Fantasy didn't release with them. But like I said, from a personal experience, it hasn't affected me. So I don't really know what it feels like to run around in the world right now.
But what about the fates? Talk to me about the fates and all
yeah.
on all the crowds of friggin' adventurers who simply wipe the poor mobs off the face of the realm. It's impossible. Like, you know, whenever you open your map, you see all these blue circles around, and you kind of have to be professional right now in estimating how much it will take you. It will take you to get to that particular fate, because otherwise you will be just wasting your time. They are normally completed in less than a minute, because there are so many people doing them. At least this is one of the things that I think instances would have helped with, because, you know, as soon as I got into the game, and it wasn't really that drastic, even though, of course, there were quite a few people in the beta as well, but the first thing I noticed is that the fates are just extremely too short. Most of them got timers from 15 to 25 minutes, and but it will never last that much. It will just be completed in a minute, and there you go. Unless you're like located straight near a fate, you are out of luck.
It's funny because well, actually on the live servers recently, I did go to I think Corthus, and I was doing some fates there, and one would pop on my map and I'd start running, and as soon as I entered the fate, it would be completed, and then one would pop down south and I'd run down there and I wouldn't even get in there in time. So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I remember being in I believe it was phase 2 beta. The level cap was the questing stopped at level 15. However, your character could level to 35. So the only way to level from obviously about 17 or 18 to 35 was through fates. And trying to do fates when there's three people in the zone was one of the worst experiences you could possibly imagine. Yeah, you show up to a fate and it's already 3 or 4 levels higher than you, and you're trying to solo it with one other person, or I guess duo it. Sorry, it it was that was very, very frustrating and difficult. So those are two opposite ends of the spectrum. You have the side where it's way too hard because there's not enough people doing the fates, and then it's way too ridiculous because there's so many people doing the fates. Instant servers would help with that while it's popular, yes, but you have to remember that eventually there's going to come a time in this game where people aren't running around, Camp Drybone anymore. And when those fates pop and they're level 17, there may be only 3 people doing those fates, and then the timing will make a lot more sense. But right now, I understand. I agree with you. But I think the instant servers would help out a lot right now.
Actually, you mentioned that people will not be running around, but now I kind of understand, now that you've actually stated your point, now I kind of understand why fates are probably the best source of experience in this game. Simply because it looks like Square Enix intended that fates will keep people running around at any time. They yield company certificates, as well as they give you the best experience. So doing quests is all fine and good, but there will be a time where basically you will run out of all the world quests, especially if you're leveling a lot, and two options that will be left to you is doing Levis, of course. By the way, tell me how it's pronounced properly, because I've been asking people and nobody knows how is it pronounced. Something like Reve, Reve
I say
in Japanese.
I say leave. So I don't know how it's pronounced either, but I say leaves. Company leaves, guild hests, etc.
Okay, I think it just comes from Japanese, and in Japanese would definitely say something like leve or reve or something like that. But okay, and like the two options you've got, leves or leaves and fates. And basically, leves are more like single-player content where you can just sit back and relax and do it at your own pace, while Fate gives you more experience. It's more group-oriented content where you have to somewhat at least interact with the other people, tank and heal for them and stuff, and much faster paced. Well, of course, with that horde of people running around and just killing stuff, it cannot be slow. So yeah, that's what I see, and that's what I think how it works, or at least how it is intended to work. But anyway, we kind of sidetracked the main topic we've been talking about. So you kind of touched kick timers or absence of them. It's already been confirmed that it's not really coming anytime soon, and only in case the login problems will persist, will they be implemented. And what do you think the mindset behind that? Is it to make people coming from Final Fantasy XI like more comfortable? I think there weren't any kick timers back there, because removing people, it's obvious. The forums are full of the messages that people are not logging out because they're afraid, and of course that creates artificial congestion on the servers, because there will always be a pretty high percent of people who do not turn off their computers, who do not log out. So that kind of creates part of the problem here, because people do not log out, they just idle. They might idle for hours and hours, and I did it myself once. I just wanted to test it out. I just left the game open, and 20 hours later when I came back, I was still there idling at the same spot. And do you think it's just the right decision not to implement this, especially considering you were not sure how much of a load can your hardware take?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they had a system in place that would allow them. See, I don't know much about programming or anything. For all I know, that programming in an AFK kick system on a game that never had it from the get-go might be something that's really hard to do. Maybe that's an issue. I don't know. I think that's probably not the case. I think it's more just that tradition. You know, Final Fantasy 11 didn't have it. Final Fantasy 14 1.0 didn't have it. So they just don't want to implement it right now. I think they want to see if the changes they're going to put in today and maybe any future changes will alleviate the issues. Because if the login, let's just say 1017 goes away. You know, if 1017 goes away and there's no more login issues, then do you need an AFK kick system? So, you know,
Probably
we'll
not, but at the same time, you know, all these players will just sometimes, and like I said, quite a large amount of players just stay logged in, and that creates artificial load on your servers. So from a business perspective, I can see how it can be useful. But then again, I can also see that maybe Yoshida-san just doesn't want to be rude to the players, because I've encountered these events myself, where I step away from the computer just to like have a dinner or something. There is some action going on in the guild chat or something, important messages here and there, and I come back and boom, login screen, everything's lost and stuff. So maybe that's the case. I don't really know, but just in light of the current event and the current problems with logins, it just seems like a reliable thing to do, or not reliable, but at least that could help alleviate some part of the problem. It doesn't have to be permanent, don't you think? You could just put it in place when it's needed and remove if there are no more problems. Like
assuming it's easy to do. You know, there's no telling. Like I said, it could be really hard, because, you know, for all I know, going in there and programming an AFK kick system means that you have to somehow trigger every action and ability in the game to not, you know, flag you for AFK. And there could be bugs associated with it and all kinds of things. So it may not be something they can do just quickly. You know, that could also be a thing.
Maybe, especially if they never had the AFK kick system from the start. They just never thought it would be such a problem, that such a system would be needed. Another thing that people have been complaining about is actually short queues, because, you know, world is full, it's okay, but why the hell doesn't it put you on a waiting list for your turn to log in? Like, the longest queue I've ever seen was, I think, 177 people, and well, even
I don't think it's a real queue. I think what you're seeing is something weird that can't be explained by humans. I have no idea what that queue is, because I have, you know, spammed to get into the game, and then I've been placed third in the queue, and I've done the same thing. And you said you've seen 177. I've seen 1,500. So, and I'm sure people have seen higher than that. But my 1,500 person queue took 5 seconds to get in the game. So I don't think it's an actual queue. I don't know what it is. I don't know what that number means, but I definitely don't think it's your position in a line.
Well, actually, that might be. It takes me back to Neverwinter launch. Have you played Neverwinter?
Oh yeah, I played Reborn.
Yeah, and at launch their queuing system was broken, where you could see the number actually increasing. 1 second you are number 1000 something in the queue, and 5 minutes later it's already 83,657 or something like that. And, you know, it might be related to that, but it's already been reported that this is being worked on, and basically today's maintenance has to set things right, because, you know, I wouldn't say they're losing money, but definitely all we've just discussed just sparks interest from the people. All these people who cannot play the game, they're sitting and watching the streams. They're asking when finally when. There are a lot of you could call them hate threads being created on the forum, but actually these people are not leaving. They're waiting. They're hating, but at the same time they're waiting for the game. And considering that the game itself is actually pretty polished, you can easily play. You can easily play it without any problems. You're not encountering any bugs. There is a high chance that these haters will actually stay in the game once they're finally able to log in. Because right now, some people are thinking, I will log in into the game, I will flame everyone, the game is a complete crap, like probably full of bugs, but it's actually not. It's a very good game for both single people who play all by themselves and, well, basically everyone. The last thing that's pretty much an issue to me. Like, I'm ready to wait until the login issues are fixed. But one issue, since I'm a European and stuff, why the hell, tell me, why the hell European servers are located in Canada? It's a little bit far from Europe. I don't understand. Why the hell do I have to have a 200 ping instead of 80?
Yeah, I don't understand the decision to place everything in Montreal and put them together. I mean, trust me, I don't really enjoy it that much either, because playing from Japan, obviously I could play on the servers here in Japan and play with 15 MS, but that's not where my guild's located, unfortunately. But regardless, like, you know, if they had West Coast servers, even, you know, I get fine. I can play fine to West Coast servers from Japan. You know, I've done it in plenty of games, and that's just not an option here. I have to go to Montreal. So I really don't know why that's the one and only data center that they could have. I don't have an answer for you there.
I had like some footage, unfortunately, I forgot what it was, showing me trying to dodge AoE attacks, and it's quite noticeable, the delay, quite noticeable. I could move out of the affected area and still take damage. And now, you know, during low level play, it might not be such a big issue, but of course in the end game rating, especially all these hard modes and stuff, and particularly in PvP, the delay is a huge issue. So unfortunately there wasn't any statement or a promise to actually relocate European servers to Europe or North American servers to North America. It's kind of weird. Neither European nor North American servers are located on their respective continents. Like, well, I suppose North American technically is in North America, but
yeah, I wouldn't expect that to change, though. I'm pretty sure it's just the way it's going to be, and people are going to have to work around it. Just two quick things, though. One, I had some issues moving out of AEs in the beginning. You know, I definitely had some issues. What I learned is with a high ping, what you want to look for, just a little tip for people that are playing the game, is don't look at the ground circles, don't look at the ground cones, don't look at the graphics on the ground, look at the cast bar. The cast bar will initiate and finish before the ground circles are there, and you know, that basically what I'm saying is the ground circles aren't accurate. The cast bar is. When you see something being casted, start moving. Then you'll see the circle, you're out of the circle, you'll see the cast bar finish, the ability will go off. So you have to dodge based on the cast bar, not on the ability circles. However, I know that's terrible. You should just be able to play the game that everybody else. You should be able to play the game the way everybody else gets to play it. I understand. Trust me. I feel the exact same thing. But one thing that helped, and I don't want to do product plugs here or anything, but there's a program called Battle Ping that does work. You know, people have heard of like Smooth Ping and whatever, but Battle Ping right now works for Final Fantasy 14. I've personally started using it. I went from about 300 MS down to about 180, 190. So that does work if you're having issues.
well, I suppose I suppose this is something related to VPN tunnels. So there is like what's this program called? I forgot. Well, it doesn't matter really. But there are quite a few services that offer VPN tunnels and routing. So definitely, if you've got the high ping, there are ways to help you in this case. Not in all the cases, but in some. Well, why not? Anyway, I think we've covered everything on the topic of login issues and servers in this game. You've got anything else to add, maybe? Something that we haven't really talked about yet?
No, not really. Just I think it's all been covered.
Alright, so then the next topic we'll move on to in just a second will be the actual content of the game, and I really want to hear a lot from what you've got to say, so in just a second. So, okay, Rokus, what do you think? Is the content in this game what we are able to see once we log in, all these quests, all these leves, all these dungeons, will be able to keep people interested in the game. For a long time. That's what I mean. Not just for a week or two, but for a long time.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it is a good indicator of what's to come as well. I can't think of you can't really include World of Warcraft in the discussion because it's such an old game and it's had so long to polish itself. So when I say these things, it's from the perspective of other MMOs basically that have come out recently. And when you compare Final Fantasy XIV, the content that's in the game to other MMOs that have released recently, there's just no comparison. It's polished. It's essentially bug-free. You know, there's been a few issues that we've run into, but it's essentially bug-free, and it works. It's very well tuned, and I find that very amazing because it wasn't tested. Like a lot of this high-end content, especially, it wasn't tested in any of the open betas or anything like that. So it's purely internally tested. They obviously know what they're doing. So I think that bodes very well for the future of the game.
I definitely agree, at least from what I was able to see myself. I haven't really encountered any bugs apart from some minor issues that are, I'm sure, being worked on. Well, in fact, some stuff like not being able to be in a conversation while mounted. It was reported for being worked on, like the fact that you cannot enter any story instance while being in Duty Finder and there is no notification about it is being worked on. These things are just minor, and basically the quests themselves are very polished and very challenging. At least I'm enjoying leveling my Thaumaturge, soon to be Black Mage. By the way, do you think I will be awesome? Do you think it will be awesome to be a Black Mage in this game?
It could be.
But honestly, there is still a large chunk of the game missing, and that is PvP. Why do you think they decided to release the game without this important part? I don't know. In every MMORPG community, a huge part of it are PvP, and basically some people may deny it, but everyone does PvP. From time to time at least, and I just don't know, it feels as if a large part of the game is missing. Even the freaking icon in the Duty Finder is there, but it's always empty. It's always empty. I was hoping it would unlock sometime, but it looks like not just yet. So why? Do you think it's not polished enough? Did you get to test it during the open beta?
Yeah, I did. As far as it not being there, I don't know if it just comes down to download or not download, deadline for the release of the game. That could have something to do with it. I have my own ideas. Basically, I feel that well, real quick though, touching on what you just said, PvP is a big part of the game, and I think it is. I think the PvP community is integral to a game's success. I honestly believe that. You have a certain section of players that only PvE, and that's what they do. They do PvE. They don't care about PvP, and the last thing they want is their PvP to affect their PvE. And I get that. Trust me. I've PvE'd for a long time. I am a PvPer, but I've PvE'd for a long time, and I absolutely cannot stand when PvP balance affects PvE balance. So I understand that, and I think and I touch on that because this game I think is going to be a little bit different in that regard. As far as it not being there, though, I think they just want to get it right. I honestly just think they want to get it right. Yoshida was a longtime PvPer in DAOC. That's not competitive style PvP. It's not arena style. It's not team deathmatch or deathmatch in general. It is world PvP, which is something that I've personally never really cared about. But for all intents and purposes, DAOC has been highly known to basically have the best world PvP that's ever existed in an MMO. And the fact that Yoshida is coming from that only means good things for world PvP in the future of Final Fantasy XIV, in my opinion. As far as competitive PvP, I did test the Colosseums during the beta. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But that's simply because you're using your PvE abilities. The DRs were a little bit ridiculous. You would eat a 30-second sleep followed by a 12-second sleep. So for 42 seconds of a fight, you're just sitting there slept, and there's nothing you can do about it. It was awful. But that's just because of the abilities that were being used. I think they were just making sure that their queuing system worked, that the map worked, etc., stuff like that. I think the PvP in this game has potential. And one of the main reasons is simply because of the balance between PvP and PvE that exists in most MMOs will not exist in this game. For those that don't know, from everything that we've heard, when you PvP in this game, you get an entirely different skill set that does not exist in PvE. You won't be using the same abilities, which means that they can balance PvP based on the PvP abilities that exist, and it won't affect PvE, and it doesn't go back and forth. For an MMO's PvP game to work, I think that's essential. That's amazing. So I have high hopes for the PvP that's coming. It should be coming soon. I hope it comes soon. The world PvP is not coming soon. I remember reading that the world PvP had a time frame of 6 months after launch. However, the Wolves Den PvP, which is 4v4 and 8v8, that's supposed to be coming soon, 2.1, I believe. So I have high hopes. Yeah, they launched without PvP. That kind of sucks, but you know what? If they get it right, who cares? Who cares that they launched a little bit late? If they get it right and it's good, awesome. If it comes late and it's not very good, then oh man, that's not going to be great. But yeah, the PvP community is integral to a game's success, in my opinion. Like PvPers are a very strong bonded community. If PvP is good in a game, people stick around and they PvP in it. And if it's not, they move on. So hopefully it's good.
Definitely, like seriously, I'm a PvPer at heart, and I will not lie, even though the game is definitely good and I'm enjoying it, but I was a little bit disappointed to learn that PvP is just not yet there. On the other hand, and this interesting part of abilities been separate for PvE and PvP, and I just cannot emphasize enough how long have I waited for a game that would actually do that, and I'm glad that it's in Final Fantasy, because for example, like in Star Wars The Old Republic, this is what could have really brought PvP in that game to a different level, separation of PvE and PvP abilities, because that's exactly what holding them back from actually balancing something that would have otherwise became a great PvP platform, but unfortunately sticking to the old ideas doesn't allow them to balance it out properly. And hearing about this really gives me hope that PvP in Final Fantasy XIV would be something else. Do you think they might actually utilize a different global cooldown for PvE rather in PvP in this game? Do you think?
I don't think they will, but man, I hope they do. I will say that coming into the game and playing through the betas and stuff, and I can only imagine for people that haven't played the game yet, that are used to other games, when they hear there's a 2.5 second GCD, I'm sure they're just like, what? And I understand that, believe me, I do. But I will say though that at the absolute highest level of the content in the game right now, in Coil Bahamut and other places, you don't feel that 2.5 second GCD. Until you get there, you won't know what I'm saying, but you really don't feel it. Because you're so, one, there's kind of off global abilities. They're hard to use sometimes because of the way it works. However, there are off global abilities, but you're so focused on survival and the mechanics of the fights that the 2.5 second GCD is almost the last thing in your mind. But in PvP, that's a different world. 2.5 second GCD in PvP would be atrocious, in my opinion. I really hope that somehow they, along with the ability separation in PvP, they separate the global cooldown. I really do, because PvP is all about Twitch reaction, just utilizing everything you have and just being fast. Like yeah, that's just the way that PvP works. You know, the quicker you are, the smarter you are with those choices. When you make those quick choices, the better you are. And a 2.5 second GCD just doesn't leave enough room in PvP to really separate good and bad players. And I hope they take that into account. Because in PvE you don't feel that GCD as much, but in PvP you definitely would.
Well, of course, in PvE you're just busy of accounting for that delay to get out of the red circles on the ground, because you just don't have the time to to feel the GCD. You have to move around. But in PvP though, definitely 2.5 second global cooldown. That just leaves too much room for your enemies to maneuver around you, like. Unless, well, no, I don't believe they will believe in 2.5 second global cooldown. Otherwise, they will have to like they will have to balance it out with something else, like higher damage skills, some ridiculously overpowered CC, and I don't really feel they want to do something like that. So I suppose we'll have to wait and find out. But one thing I have to really put an accent on right here is that it just cannot, in the current state of things, it cannot take them, they cannot take too much time putting PvP out. It has to, I personally feel it has to come in a month at maximum. In a month at maximum, because this month people will learn the game. It's not the late 90s or the beginning of 2000. It will not take people too long to plow through the game. Well, maybe some end game rating will take a while, but people will need that dynamic that PvP brings, and well, I give it a month at maximum. If it takes longer, people might be disappointed in that.
I think I think to help you out though, there's a quote from Yoshida that basically says that less than 100 people will clear the Coil of Bahamut before patch 2.1. Patch 2.1 is supposed to have PvP in it, along with the Crystal Tower. 2.1 cannot be delayed for too long because there's an entire section of raid content missing. The content between Titan hard mode and Coil of Bahamut is the Crystal Tower. It's missing. Titan hard mode goes from eye level 70 gear to eye level 90 gear in Coil Bahamut. Crystal Tower is supposed to be eye level 80 and 85 gear. So, in fact, if you consider that that is supposed to be coming along with PvP in patch 2.1, and Yoshida directly said that less than 100 people will clear Coil Bahamut before 2.1, that gives hope, because, like I said, you know, I haven't said it yet, but my guild is in turn 4 of the Coil Bahamut out of 5 turns. So we're almost done. And I know that some non-legacy guilds have already cleared turn 1, so there's only a matter of time. So people are getting to that point. And if they really theorize that 100 people or less would clear Coil Bahamut, that means that 2.1 should be close, which means that PvP should be close.
I really hope so. But now that you've mentioned it, I really want to level to 50 as soon as possible, gear up. That will be something to brag about. I was one of these less than 100 people in the world that cleared Coil of Bahamut first. Definitely something to brag about in a tavern late at night. But anyways, okay. The next... well, I guess we pretty much covered what we could just cover about PvP. I don't really know what else to say on that matter. You have something to add? You actually were talking about that 2.5 global cooldown and how you found it atrocious in Toulon. But remember what we talked about before about the Final Fantasy XI players, and there were really that many threads still on the closed beta forum. Basically, a small war between like us, people coming from different MMOs, more recent ones, with standardized 1.5 second global cooldown, who are used to that faster paced combat, and legacy, old school Final Fantasy XI players who just cannot keep up with the pace. And don't you find it a little bit fun? Who do you think will win in the end? Because it's definitely not possible to like accommodate to the both communities.
I would hope the faster GCD community would win, but the more I think about it, yeah. So just to put it out there, I don't enjoy the 2.5 second GCD. You know, like I'm used to a much faster gameplay style. Like I said though, in PvE currently, I don't really feel that GCD because there's a lot going on. In PvP, it would be bad. Just want to reiterate that one more time in case anybody ever watches this. Please don't put a 2.5 second GCD in PvP. With that being said, yeah, the Final Fantasy community, the Final Fantasy XI community, I should say, is a completely different world of players. I'm not trying to bag on them by any means, because it's not the kind of person I am, but they're definitely used to a different play style of games compared to a more action-oriented gamer. And you know, they try to make these weird arguments like, oh, it allows for more tactics and blah blah blah, and please, it does not. Okay, like 2.5 seconds is very, very slow. But I think the major stemming issue and the reason that 2.5 seconds is here to stay is because Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV are both designed to be played on console. And I have a gamepad. It's this one right here. I don't use it. I don't use this thing. But I have this. And I tried playing Final Fantasy XIV with that gamepad. And it is nigh impossible. To hit off global abilities on a gamepad is one of the most difficult and most infuriating things I've ever done. You're just trying to like hold down R2LX. I'm like, well, what the heck? And it won't go off. And it's awful. So I think the 2.5 second GCD stems from the fact that they cater to consoles. And that's important. You have to understand that's important for Final Fantasy because it's a Japanese game. Japanese players typically don't have PCs. They're not a PC gaming community. That's not what the Japanese community does. They are a console gaming community. So they all, and the fact that Final Fantasy is a Japanese game, they're going to always, take care of their own. And so that means they're going to take care of console players. And a 1.5 second or lower GCD on a console, no, there's no way. It'd be impossible. So I think you have to keep that in mind for the 2.5 second GCD is that they have to allow console players to be able to keep up. And like I said, in PvE, not a big deal, but in PvP, man, it's just it doesn't lend itself to being a very good thing. I really want this game to succeed, and and PvP being good in a game is important for a game to succeed. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it.
I left there for a second because you voiced your opinion on the controller, and I was looking for my own because I totally agree with what you said. When I first downloaded the closed beta for Final Fantasy XIV, I was like, this will be probably my first experience. People said there is a good controller support. Well, not the first download because of course controller support came in a little bit later, but I was like, it will be probably my first MMORPG. I'm gonna play with a controller. I'll just sit back, relax, and play it on my wireless rumble pad. But how quickly I friggin' realized that to be good at this game with a controller for that I would probably need to change my hands first, and I wasn't really ready for that just yet. I just thought no more controllers, okay? But yes, definitely when you put it that way, yes, Japanese gamers definitely they're mostly console gamers, and for to be successful in Japan, this game definitely had to hit PS3 and PS4, and this will mostly be controller based, and Yes, what you said definitely makes a lot of sense here. All right, so the next issue, it's well, I don't know if it's an issue, but currently the class balance in the game, it's been already stated several times that there is just not enough tanks, a little bit less healers than needed, and too much DPS. From the DPS standpoint, duty finder times are simply ridiculous. I have to stay for 25 to 35 minutes in queue just to get myself a pop for a lower level dungeon. That's not really a problem sometimes if you already have a pre-made group, because there is no class restriction on who can go into what dungeon in a pre-made party. But if you want things done right, you have to really wait. What's your take on this situation? What do you think could be done, if anything, to alleviate this problem?
Well, as long as the Holy Trinity exists in video games, this is always going to be a problem.
But
People,
this is a fresh game. This is a fresh game. It should be booming. All the servers are overloaded, but still, DPS are having incredibly, insanely long wait times.
okay.
And this thing, what's important to note here is that duty finder groups are closely tied into the main progression. I mean, if they weren't intrusive, it wouldn't be a problem. Like, you can just go ahead and do something else. But right now, considering that you need to complete certain fights, for example, like Ifrit fight, quite often through the group finder, and wait times for that are ridiculous. Something I'm feeling needs to be done. What do you think? You told me like something before about amount of tanks maybe increasing in the future, but maybe you could go over that again.
Yeah, sure. But just real quick, what I was going to say is like, as long as the Holy Trinity exists in games, which it has for a long time, and it's going to continue that way. It's just the way that it is. You know, you need a tank, you need a healer, you need DPS. The problem is that not everybody ever wants to heal, not everyone wants to tank. DPS is the fun thing to do in a game. You just got to face it. You know, the majority of players are going to want to be DPS, so DPS is always going to be flooded. That's just the way it is. However, Final Fantasy XIV is a little bit different than most games. You know, in most games, people choose their character, they choose their class, and that's what they want to do. So right now, what's going on for lower level people is that people have chosen their classes, and being that DPS is going to be congested because that's just the way it is, things are going to be slow for now. When people hit 50, though, Final Fantasy XIV takes a slightly different turn than most games. Let's just take the Dragoon, for instance. That's my main class. As a Dragoon, you know, I pull abilities from the Pugilist and the Warrior. So I'm going to want to level a Warrior as a Dragoon. If I was a monk, I'd be doing the same thing. And because I want to level that Warrior, you know, because I want certain abilities, then as a Warrior, suddenly, even though I'm a DPS player, now I'm a tank. And I'm going to be queuing up for dungeons and stuff as a tank now, even though normally I'm a DPS. And I think that as time goes on in Final Fantasy, some of those problems will alleviate themselves because you'll have people playing different classes, trying to get different abilities for their main class. You know, there's going to be people playing conjurers and summoners and stuff like that because, or scholars, because they want to, you know, get different abilities for their main class. So they're going to be healing dungeons, they're going to be tanking dungeons, they're going to be doing this, that, and the other. And I think queues will eventually alleviate themselves much more so than other games, whereas people pigeonhole themselves into one class. You know, in order to play a tank in another game, you have to re-roll an entirely different character, and people don't always want to do that. Whereas in Final Fantasy, you're going to be leveling that other class just because you're going to need to do that anyway eventually. Another thing is incentive. Right now, they put in a unicorn mount for conjurers. So, you know, people have an incentive to play a healer because they want a unicorn mount. You know, maybe they'll put in a tank mount. You know, they'll do something to get people to play warriors and paladins or gladiators. It's gonna happen. But like I said, not only will incentives be there to play these other classes, but as people hit level 50 this first time around, they're going to start leveling secondary classes to pull those abilities. And when they're doing that, they'll be queuing up as tanks and healers.
Yoshida-san definitely, in one of the recent interviews, I forgot what interview it was, joked a little bit about putting in a tank mount. I suppose it might happen, or maybe he'll find a more interesting way to bring more tanks into the game. But now that you actually said all this, I really see how the system implemented in this game is so smart. Like seriously, you don't really. All this synergy between the classes simply requires you to like change your profession, try out something new. If today you're a DPS, tomorrow you might be a healer or a tank, and that is actually awesome. Like in most other MMOs with the currently existing systems, you are most of the time just stuck with one class, and let's be honest, leveling a second character can be a tasking and a burdening system. But here you can just go ahead, one single click, and you are already a different class, different job, and that's quite awesome. I feel it can definitely make not only switching your class easier, but rectify the problems with tanks, and because today's DPS are tomorrow's tanks, and today's tanks are tomorrow's healers, and yeah. But of course, we have to remember that this is just a launch. Of course, things need a little bit of time to stabilize, and just 1 week, well, a little bit over than 1 week is just not the amount of time for the things to get right, so to speak. So yeah, we should definitely give it a little bit of time. People are trying out stuff, trying to complete the main storyline and trying to get to the end game. And speaking of the end game, by the way, so tell me, since obviously I haven't yet leveled and you are a legacy player, tell me about the end game content that currently there is.
You know, I'm very, very happy with the end game. I was a little nervous coming into it just because you never know what to expect from a new game, and you know, I was already obviously max level and stuff, being a legacy player, so end game is the only thing I really had to look forward to. And I was a little bit nervous about it, especially given, you know, the last few MMOs that have released. There's really been a lackluster end game in MMOs, and I think Final Fantasy XIV has really overdone themselves in that regard. There's a very clear progression path. There's some very fun, very finely tuned encounters. You know, for people that haven't played yet, you know, there's primal fights, and there's normal versions of them as you level up, and then you do a 8-man hard mode version of them, and you kind of attune yourself, you know, as you go along. You attune for the next fight, the next fight, the next fight, until eventually you attune yourself for the Coil Bahamut. And the Coil Bahamut is basically the hardest raid in the game right now, and it's 5 levels. There's 5 levels of the Coil Bahamut. Final Fantasy XIV calls them turns. You can think of them, for any WoW players out there, if you think back to Naxxramas, how Naxxramas had wings. Same thing for Coil Bahamut. There's 5. There's 5 turns. And I guess the only discrepancy right now in the in-game rating scene is that you go from item level 70 content into item level 90 content, which is Coil Bahamut. And the reason for that is that there's a gap. There's a gap in between Titan Hard Mode and the Coil Bahamut, and that gap is called the Crystal Tower. And Crystal Tower is supposed to be released with 2.1. It's item level 80 and 85 gear, and I'm not exactly sure how everything is going to work out yet, because the way that Crystal Tower is supposed to work is it's a 24-man raid zone. Apparently it's tuned to where you can do it through Dungeon Finder, which is a little bit concerning for me. That kind of lends itself to maybe being a little bit too easy. If it can be done through Dungeon Finder, maybe the content becomes easy. And then the issue with that is that if you all of a sudden have easy content in the Crystal Tower, which drops item level 85 gear, then that's only going to make the Coil Bahamut even easier. So it's hard to tell what's going to happen with the end game. But as it stands right now, it's better than any other game I've played in the last 5 years as far as new games coming out with the end game.
You've got me intrigued. I really want to level myself to 50 now and just raid some, even though I'm not that much of a PvEer, and I would prefer to see PvP out as soon as possible. But you talking so passionately about it, really makes me want to just go ahead, level, and play a little bit. So, So, do you think we've covered everything from the current content, or is there something else you want to talk about? Oh, actually, now that I think about, recently Yoshida-san kind of stated that he wants to add a lot more difficulty levels to the currently existing endgame fights, like fights with primals. He wants to have, like, I think 5 difficulty levels. Do you really think that many difficulty levels are something that could keep people interested in that content, or what's the mindset behind it? Because I don't really know. There wasn't anything else said about it, and some people are voicing their concerns that it's just an attempt to, like, tell people, well, wait until something else is ready someday. Just here and there, you've got new difficulty levels. Be happy. That's content. What do you think about it?
I'll try to keep this short because I could talk about this for a long time.
Go ahead. I think that would be interesting to think, to know what you think.
I come from old school raiding, meaning, you know, the first raids I can think of were in EverQuest 1, you know, Lord Nagafen, Lady Box, and I was one of the first people in the world to complete those 2 dragons in EverQuest, and ever since then, you know, I've kind of been hooked on PvE, and the thing is that PvE for the longest time didn't have difficulty settings. There was just the content. You either did it or you didn't. You know, some of it was easy and some of it was very, very hard. And content wasn't always put out so that everybody could see it and so that everybody could beat it. You know, if you wanted to beat it, you had to put in the time and you had to have the appropriate skill, and you had to have the appropriate friends as well. You know, let's not kid ourselves. But the thing is that all of a sudden, you know, things changed during Wrath of the Lich King, World of Warcraft, where for some reason they felt like, you know, people were entitled to see content that maybe they weren't even good enough to see. So they created this whole heroic mode thing. And honestly, I feel like it's been kind of not the downfall of PvE, because PvE is still good, but it's definitely been a turning point in the way that PvE works. You know, it used to be you either did the content or you didn't. Now, in these days, it's more like, oh, well, you know, here's 7 different difficulty modes, so you can see the baby version of it, you know, the kind of medium version of it, and the big dick version. Sorry, it's never really made sense to me to do it like that, because one, it prolongs content cycles, which I don't like. You know, it's a way for them to artificially create more content. You know, if you do one fight 4 different difficulties, that doesn't mean that there's more content in the game, in my opinion. It just draws it out. I don't particularly enjoy that. I really don't. You know, I wish there wasn't a 4-man and an 8-man and a harder. I wish there was just Ifrit. You either did it or you didn't. But with that being said, I don't think there's any going back. You know, WoW kind of set a precedent in the whole heroic and normal mode scene and the whole casual and hardcore raider scene. Like, the precedent's been set. I don't think there's any going back from it. So from that standpoint, moving forward, yeah, you know, extreme mode primals, they're neat. They existed in 1.0. There's Ifrit normal, Ifrit hard, and Ifrit extreme. You know, it's just typical amongst MMOs these days to do that kind of stuff. You know, it's a way for more casual players to see the content, and a way to challenge their hardcore players at the same time. But you know, like I said, I think it prolongs their content cycles. It allows them to take forever to release new content, and it gets a little bit boring. So I hope that Final Fantasy's future isn't only releasing rehashed, harder versions of their current content. I don't like playing the same content over and over again. You know, when I was playing WoW and I was deep into it, the thing that burnt me out the most was during the Trial of the Crusader instance, when we were running 10-man normal, 10-man hard, 25-man normal, 25-man heroic at the exact same raid every single week. I was killing the same bosses 4 times each week, and it was just, I just couldn't take it anymore. You know, I just want to kill a boss once and be done with it. And so, you know, I hope moving forward, Final Fantasy, if they want to release extreme modes of their primals, that's great and all, but I hope they keep coming up with fresh content as well, instead of just rehashing their old content and making it harder.
Well, I don't think that Yoshida-san will fail us in this regard, at least from what I'm seeing right now. The content he's been delivering is quite good and quite well polished, but at the same time, this can be a stepping stone a little bit, because to keep that mark he's set is not an easy job, definitely, because to deliver the content of the quality which he's already delivered really takes time. So maybe that is why he needs those difficulty modes and stuff. I just hope it doesn't take him too long, because like I said previously, and it's the same thing as with PvP. If it's just a requirement in today's MMO world. You just have to have steady new content, otherwise people will just get bored. Even though the whole basic mechanics of content in this game are amazing. You can level different classes, you can grind fates, you can run dungeons once you're tired, you can go level a profession and cook something for you to eat and stuff. But still, definitely new content is required, and more importantly, it doesn't have to take too long to be delivered. So, I suppose we've covered everything here. Oh, actually, no, not so fast. As a legacy player, did you get to experience the story in this game?
Yeah. Yes and no. Like, the story was there for me to experience it if I wanted to, but we were, the guild that I play with, we're very interested in pushing content and achieving world firsts and stuff like that. So I was space barring through all of the storylines, but yes.
Aww.
The way that the game is set up, you actually can't progress without completing the main story quest. Everything is gated through the main story quest, and to include your grand company, to doing Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, all that stuff. You have to complete the main story quest. So yes, I did it as a legacy player. I didn't watch it or anything. I'll have to go back and do it, or maybe I'll create an alt one day and I'll do it just to see the story.
So, tell me another thing. Do legacy players who come with their well-geared characters from 1.0 have a huge advantage over those who are just starting out?
I was watching a stream of some guys on a Gilgamesh the other day. They were clearing through Coil 1 Bahamut, and actually my old guild, one of my old WoW guilds, was doing Titan hard mode and stuff like that. And but I was watching the guys on Gilgamesh doing Coil 1 Bahamut. I noticed that while they themselves weren't saying it, a lot of people in their streams were bringing up my guild and a few other players and stuff like that, and they were saying, "Oh, well, that doesn't count. Legacy doesn't count. They have Relic +1, and they have item level this and that gear." And there's a huge misconception around the community right now about what Legacy players have. The advantage that Legacy players have, and I'll just put this out there right now, is the fact that we didn't have to level our characters, obviously. So we got to dive into the endgame content sooner. However, we're in the endgame content with pretty much the same gear that everybody else has. Amdapor Keep allows any new player to gear themselves up into what we're wearing, item level 70 gear, in just a matter of a day. Just to be blunt, my main is a Dragoon right now. Whenever I came over and started playing on my Dragoon didn't have gear. That's the class I decided I wanted the main for this game, and I didn't have gear for it. So I basically had to gear out my character and go into these raids right now. And so I had no gear advantage over a non-legacy player at all. All I had was the fact that I started at level 50. So we're doing the same content and the same exact item level gear as everybody else. It's item level 70 gear. The only advantage we have is the crafted gear obviously is going to be a little bit better because the new servers haven't caught up yet. Higher material melds, stuff like that. Even though I personally don't have any of that stuff, I'm just using a few pieces of dark light and some level 47 jewelry and my relic weapon. My gear is not much better than these new players right now. So.
Oh, that definitely puts my heart at ease. To be honest, I was one of these people who were against actually allowing legacy players to transfer their characters, because I really didn't want to be one of these people who would find themselves at level 1, surrounded by all these geared level 50s, but it looks like actually I should compliment Square Enix on how they did it, because it really looks like it doesn't really take a lot of time to catch up to those people who transferred, and I find it a good thing. They didn't really leave you guys with nothing, but at the same time, it really doesn't take me that much effort to catch up to you, and I find it really good. So I think with this we definitely covered everything, at least of what I had in mind for the content part. I feel like there is something I wanted to talk about, but I totally forgot what it was. It's like it was a huge subject. Well, maybe not so huge since I forgot it, but something that I really wanted. Well, anyway, I guess it doesn't matter since I don't remember. You got anything to add? Okay,
No.
so we've got a couple more things to discuss that are coming up next, and then we'll be probably wrapping this up. So coming up, discussion on NDA and materials usage license in the next few moments here. So one of the topics that's really been important in the last, well, more than just, of course, a few weeks, ever since probably beta, closed beta, stage 3, it's been kind of a sensitive matter. It is, of course, the non-disclosure agreement, which prevented anyone from streaming, leaking out any info. Later on, they were allowed to post the screenshots and discuss, but that was pretty much it until the actual release of the game. This is something that was not taken so well by a lot of people. Why do you think they had to have such harsh restrictions in place? They pretty much banned everyone. And what's even worse, to be honest, in all this, well, not maybe even worse, but what added to this being not a great experience for many people is that a lot of the community members, a lot of testers actively, just actively acted as a police, seeking out any violators, willing or unwilling, and reported them. A lot of people actually got banned from the beta. So why do you think Square Enix denied themselves publicity? Well, I can understand, like beta, alpha, beta test, stage 1, 2, and maybe 3, the game was pretty much unfinished, but during the open beta and early access, just why? A lot of people might have promoted this game even further than it is right now, but why?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it was a little confusing to me. It seems like they were, like I said, well, like you said, I understood the NDA early on, phase 1, phase 2, and even phase 3. But as soon as it went into open beta and stuff, I could have sworn the NDA would have been lifted, and it wasn't. I was like, okay. The biggest shock to me was whenever early access, the NDA was still in place during early access, when, you know, it was a public game, you could play it. It really didn't make much sense to me. You know, the optimistic side of me says that maybe it was a good thing. You know, maybe it was a good thing that they didn't allow streaming, because it just created, once again, you know, like we said earlier, more anticipation for the game. You know, if people aren't allowed to stream it, it's, you know, it's like, man, it's a big mystery. What's going on in this game? I need to see it. I want to play it. You know, I honestly just, I don't have a good answer for this, because it didn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah,
I don't
all
know.
goes back to that conspiracy theory to just create hype. They denied publicity to themselves. They artificially made all these login errors. They didn't create enough servers, all to hype the game up. It looks that way. Seriously, when you just gather all the random things, all the separate things together as a whole picture, it really starts to look like probably it's the Illuminati who are behind this game completely.
Yeah. Well,
So
one thing to keep in mind though is that you may not consider this, but think about other games that have released in the last few years. I remember whenever Star Wars, before it was released, man, there was so much hype behind Star Wars, just hype, 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 hype. And when the game released, it didn't live up to people's expectations. And then Star Wars came out, and the next thing was Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 had so much hype behind it. It was just like, oh, this is the next big thing. I think that game lasted like 2 weeks before people were like, all right, this game's awful. And then, now right now the big hype is WildStar. WildStar's the big hype. But keep this in mind. Throughout all of this, A Realm Reborn has been in production. It's been there. I've been in the beta and alpha combined for almost a year now. And all this time, when I read message boards and forums and different things, nobody ever was talking about A Realm Reborn. They were talking about Guild Wars 2. They were talking about, The Elder Scrolls Online. They're talking about WildStar. Final Fantasy had almost zero hype leading up to it. And when it released, it smashed every MMO record that there's ever been. Not ever, but most of these records that have been existing or that have existed have been smashed by this game that had almost no hype, no streaming, and a tight NDA. People can't log into it and even buy it right now, and it's one of the, it has zero hype leading up to this, and all this is happening. So
all these sneaky Japanese and Illuminati, definitely, there is a huge conspiracy. But the game, even there is no hype, it has to live up. Well, maybe this is their strategy to create hype by actually leaking nothing, but the game has to live up to has to have something to show all these people who will be pouring. Well, basically they're pouring right now, and the game has to have something to show all these people, to surprise them with something, to amaze them. And well, as we discussed previously, it looks like the game definitely has something about it to actually keep people playing it. So I suppose it's not such a bad thing after all. But still, wouldn't it have been better to have people promoting the already good game? If this game is good and has everything to keep its players, then why deny its publicity? Because obviously, if there are people playing and showing that this game is awesome, wouldn't it be better for your population and its health overall?
maybe not. I would imagine that had the streaming been available and all these things and whatever, sure, there may have been a little bit more popularity, and then we'd be dealing with 1017 even more right now. So maybe it was a good thing that didn't happen. But on another token though, it's like, I'll give Hearthstone out. Have you ever heard of Hearthstone, the new Blizzard card game?
Mm-hmm.
As an example, Hearthstone is just in beta. I've never played it, obviously. I don't have a beta key. And I've watched Kriparian play so much Hearthstone that I don't even want to play it anymore. So, it's like I've already seen the game. I feel like I've been playing the game because I've been watching Krip play the game for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks even. So it's like, I don't know. It's almost like streaming sometimes allows you to vicariously play a game. And maybe they wanted to avoid that. They wanted people to get in there and see it for themselves instead of just have it, streamed to them.
Well, I wouldn't say that Hearthstone is the best example in this case. After all, MMORPGs are a little bit different. to tactical or strategical card games, but still, I can see where you're coming from, and this does seem logical. Like, definitely, maybe too much publicity is also a negative thing for a game, especially. Well, if you look at the picture as a whole, it looks like they've chosen a pretty damn good strategy. Like, all what's happening right now, it creates hype. From what I can see, it does create hype, and the game itself, it's good. Seriously, if you get through all these troubles and get into the game, after all, you find the game is really decent. And right now, NDA has been lifted; it can be public, and people can see it all.
Yeah.
But this leads us to the second part, and that's what surprised people even more than the actual presence of the NDA up until the very release day. It's of course the materials usage license. Do you know anything about it?
Not much. Just I've heard things about it. You know, I understand what's been going on, but I don't know anything firsthand about it.
And this is like the thing that even accepts, not accepts, what am I talking about? Affects this very talk show we're having. It basically, right now, like seriously, it looks like Square Enix actually heard the pleas from the huge content makers that definitely weren't happy with the restrictions that were put on them, because basically what materials usage license did is prevented these content makers, big content makers, from making any kind of money from any kind of content that featured Final Fantasy XIV. And what's even worse, it didn't really make any exceptions to anyone. So basically, regardless of whether you're a big brand or just a small person such as me and you, for example, well, we're cool, of course, but still, in the realm of content making, we're small. You couldn't monetize your content, and that really stirred up a crap storm in the content making society, because a lot of people, they put hours of work and hours of research, and while they definitely provide the content for free, they still want to make some passive return from it, like from ads or any other way. But materials usage license denied you anything. Right now, though, it's kind of okay. Finally, Square Enix decided that. Well, I'm sure they were pressured by the content makers, because seriously. Agreement didn't make any exceptions to anyone. Everyone was forbidden from making money out of Final Fantasy XIV and Realm Reborn, and that is definitely. Do you actually think that third-party content on YouTube, podcasts, anything is healthy for the game?
Oh, absolutely. Of course it is. You know, it's very healthy for the game. It's healthy for the longevity of games, and of course, it could also lead to the downfall of games if people start, you know, bad-mouthing everything in public. But I think overall, it builds an entirely different community. You know, there's a community that exists within the game. There's a community that exists outside of the game, and I think both are equally important.
So, in this case, do you think any kind of financial involvement helps create better content than when people just do it for free?
I don't know. I mean, that's just. I guess that's one that I really can't speak on. You know, I've never made money from anything that I've done from games or anything, but it's never been my goal. You know, to be honest, I think the people that have put out the best content that I've ever seen as far as games go, I don't know if they were really financially motivated to begin with. I think they just kind of do it. They do their thing. You know, they entertain, they play the games, they create videos, and they create content. And I think that the monetization from that is just a side effect, so to speak. You know, it just kind of comes on its own. I don't know if that's the motivating factor. However, with the way that things are today, with the way that Twitch works, you know, Twitch partners and the people that have, you know, sub buttons and everything, they they may not be driven by money, but man, they're driven. When you get paid to do something, and once you've been paid, then all of a sudden you're not going to want to do it for free. You know what I mean? So I definitely understand them wanting to continue making their money.
Well, you don't really necessarily have to be driven by money to make a passive income, like through ads.
Oh,
It,
of
it,
course.
it doesn't, you are still providing your content for basically free, but there is just a little something extra that helps you make some return. So, do you think, well, actually you said it, so why would I ask this question once, but I personally think that when you are able to make just that little something, it doesn't necessarily have to be a lot, but when you feel that you can buy yourself a beer and just relax after you've spent some yes, exactly, after you've spent some hours and hours into putting your mind, soul and heart into that video or podcast or audio, it just makes you not want to give up doing that, and personally I feel that's really good for a game's health, because it makes you strive to deliver better content. But well, Square Enix just made revisions. It's still pretty restrictive. For example, you cannot really use music from the game in any way other than how it's used in-game. So basically, if I wanted to put any track on this show, even though it's directly related to the game, I would be violating the terms of service and agreement. The only way music can play is only how it's used in the game. No other way. But now at least they're allowing some most popular monetization programs to be used, like YouTube, Twitch TV, Ustream, and several others, although I'm not entirely sure what several others are meant in this case, but well, you can do it now. Previously you couldn't at all, but like I said, probably Square Enix got pressured because nobody wanted. You said that content makers are not really financially motivated, or they might not be, but previously you mentioned Kriparian, and do you really think that if he wasn't making any money, because he definitely does make some money, we will never probably know how much, but do you really think he would be still sticking around playing games for the people, even if he had 10,000 people watching him, but if he didn't make a single penny out of it, do you really think he would be still around streaming and making content and stuff?
Well, it's not like I know him personally, but I actually think in Kriparian's case, yes. And I say that simply because I have seen him with thousands upon thousands of viewers playing popular games. And if a more unpopular game comes out and he wants to play it, he plays it. You know, he's going to make less ad revenue from his commercials because he only has, a certain amount of viewers, whatever, and it doesn't seem to bother him. He plays whatever game he wants to play. So I don't know if he's entirely financially motivated, but I know that there are some streamers out there, and I'm not going to name drop, that they only stream to make money. And I think there's a difference between them and then those that stream and they happen to make money when they stream. I think Kriparian just happens to make money when he streams, and he would be doing it regardless. But no, there are streamers out there though that purely stream for money.
The only problem that I see with that flow of yours is, like me and you, we're gamers. How many games do we actually play on a regular basis, especially if we're talking about being competitive or good at any game? Well, I just want to compare me or you to Kriparian, for example, and your belief that he's not really financially motivated. What I think is, if he really wasn't financially motivated, he wouldn't be changing games that often, because how many games me and you actually play, and he claims to be a competitive player to an extent. Would you really be switching games that often as he does?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, but yeah, no, I don't know.
Because
me personally. Yeah, I don't switch games very often at all, but
We like our games and we stick to them. Would you really be willing to switch your game if there wasn't any money involved? Like you would be people you're watching what I like to play, so just keep watching it. But if there's money, it's a completely different discussion there. You will probably change a game if you knew it will keep bringing income.
I'm sure I would.
Yeah, but so I suppose we'll see where this leads, and I kind of feel materials usage license will still undergo some adjustments here and there, and what happened today is just a start, or well, it's already yesterday. It is just a start, and I was really surprised how many people were actively and spitefully. That was especially a huge part. At what was I surprised? Spitefully defending this license. Some people were coming into the forums and other social media. They were like, it's really bad for the health of the game, denying monetary involvement to the people who make content, because really, if there is some involvement, it, at least I personally think that way, it makes people strive to deliver better content. If there is none, they might make a video or two. Even if it was good, they would just say, to hell with it, I've got more pressing matters, I need to feed family. But at the same time, if they make $100 or $200 from their videos, they will be like, I could definitely help support that game, and at the same time not die of starvation. And of course, they will try to do better, and at the same time freely promote the game to the people who might otherwise be unaware of its existence. So yeah, I feel like we'll see where this goes, but what was I really surprised at is the community's reaction. Because they were like, nobody needs your videos, and this is not the right mindset. What do you think about this community's reaction? Because seriously, a lot of people on the forums were like, nobody needs your videos, like, anyway, why the hell? You think to make money off this game? Well, forget about it. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you, about your videos. But the thing that people didn't understand, that the agreement denied monetary involvement to everyone, not just some small people who want to make a quick buck, but just to everyone. What do you think about this reaction? Do you think it's right to think like that?
I mean, I don't personally agree with it, just because, I think that like YouTubers and Twitch streamers and stuff, they're very integral to the entire community for gaming in general right now. They keep things popular, they keep things fresh, and I think it's a good thing. So I don't know why people would say, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that. I mean, of course you don't need it, but I mean, it's nice to have around. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
I just think it's a fun community in general, the whole streaming community.
Yes, it's like, it's like improvised social network for gamers. Like, it's the same phenomenon today as the Facebook was just a few years ago. Today, everyone goes to Twitch from time to time. Everyone watches video game videos, and money always makes things, at least makes people try harder. And this field is not an exception. So I think this covers this topic. There's really not much else to say here. I think I kind of lifted the stone off my heart. I spoke my mind. I'm done with this. So we'll be moving on to the last part of our talk show here. We'll talk about community achievements and what's already happened in the vast world of Eorzea in just a second. So I think we've covered the most important things that happened in the game over the last week, but I still want to talk a little bit about the community that's just been established with a lot of players coming in and not really knowing where is the place they belong to. So if you were to recommend someone where to go to get that Final Fantasy XIV fix and communicate with the other players, where would you suggest these new players and maybe some old players who are not really sure what to do now that they're in almost entirely new game? Do you have any particular website maybe or something like that where people could hang out and get to know each other and outside of the game, of course?
I guess the Lodestone is the big official one. It's a pretty good website and everything. It's kind of like the WoW Armory, mixed it with your forums and all that good stuff. And then there's a place a lot of 1.0 players hang out there. It's called Guildwork. It's guildwork.com. It's kind of like a guild website hosting site, mixed in with some other stuff as well. And then of course there's the Final Fantasy XIV subreddit. So some decent places to find information and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Of course, you shouldn't forget of the official forums. A lot of people have been pouring in, creating all kinds of threads about the game, questions, recommendations, and stuff. Unfortunately, I think you cannot really post on these forums, and this is something. I find interesting. I'm not entirely sure what level you have to be. To actually make a thread or reply. I think you can find out by reading one of these stickies here, but still, what do you think about this, about the level restriction? Of course, I understand that it's to combat spam, but currently I'm almost level 30 and still cannot post on the forums. Don't you think that's a little bit too much? I think I already qualify as a productive member of the community. I've done quite a lot in this game, but still cannot really participate in the discussion. Do you think that's something that necessarily should be in place?
I don't know, maybe it's something to look at later on. If you're level 30, it seems like you're plenty high to be able to post on the forums. So I didn't even know there was a level restriction for the forums. So.
Yeah, like the other day I created an account and wanted to talk to people, ask a question, but it told me, "Oops, your main character level is just not enough to post on the forum." So I suppose that could alienate some newcomers from it, but like Rocothy said, there's always an official subreddit, a lot of interesting info in here. You should also definitely hit Twitch. A lot of smaller communities on the streams there, but lots of lots of same people across different streams right now. Of course, since there's maintenance going on, most of the streams are doing nothing, not a lot of viewers, but normally there are thousands and thousands of people to discuss the game with and talk to. So, actually, now that we're almost at the end of the talk show, I really would like to talk a little bit about the community's achievements over the past week. And the achievements I'm talking about is, of course, clearing content. So, in your opinion, do you think that most hard mode primals have been cleared on all of the servers in the world?
I doubt the hard mode Titan's been cleared on every server. I know that Gilgamesh, the non-legacy server, they cleared it, and I'm sure some others have as well, and definitely some Japanese players. I don't know if Titan's been cleared on every server. Ifrit has, I'm sure, though. But yeah.
Speaking about Titan, here is a pretty interesting picture that was posted on Reddit. Of course, recently there was PAX Prime. and Final Fantasy was represented there, and it looks like a community of gamers there got a chance to try themselves against Titan. I'm not sure if it was hard mode or is there a normal mode for the Titan?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what they did for the packs is they took the 4-man version of Titan, and they just put 8 people in there and then gave them some extra HP or something. It wasn't the hard mode version.
Is hard mode really that hard?
For Titan,
Yes.
it's a decent challenge. It's it's nothing like above and beyond anything we've seen in other MMOs, but it's definitely the first real big challenge in Final Fantasy. Yes.
Actually didn't say anywhere what kind of Titan did they beat, but I guess since it didn't say hard mode, because that would have made the challenge even more awesome. But anyway, that group of people got some fancy t-shirts, still quite a good achievement in itself. Next thing, there was where is this? First behemoth kill on the behemoth server, and that was streamed, so you people might want to check out recorded videos on Twitch. Let's just take a short look if it ever loads. It's trying, but Twitch is really not the best service, at least for me, to keep your videos at. It's great for streaming, but unfortunately the videos here load just terribly slow, like freaking turtles. Well, it looks like I was able to get a second frame finally, so I don't have enough hope to see any action here. Oh, actually, almost. Well, anyway, while it's loading, I would like you, Rakuthi, to tell me a little bit about your guild's exploits on. Yes, I agree with that sound. About your guild's exploits on the server you play. Tell me about the rating.
It's going pretty well. We progressed through the hard mode primals pretty quickly, and went into the Coil Bahamut. There's 5 levels in the Coil Bahamut, and right now we're on level 4 out of 5. It's going pretty well.
How long did it take you actually? How many wipes were there? Are the mechanics interesting? How challenging it is actually compared to the other MMOs, to the content like we see in the other MMOs, hardest content.
It's right now the way that I see it is mechanically and technically it's a decent challenge. It's nothing that any seasoned MMO player hasn't seen before. As far as the way that it exists in Final Fantasy right now is it's a big gear check. So that's the big hurdle right now, is just it's a gear check mixed with moderate to slightly hard difficult content. As far as time spent in there, pretty decent amount of time.
Alright, have you cleared all the primals, I guess? How were these fights? Hard modes, of course.
They're pretty good. They progressively get harder. I think Ifrit hard mode is a nice introduction for players into Final Fantasy to show different mechanics and things that you need to avoid, and there's a small DPS check that it can be passed by, I guess, with a limit break or whatever. And then you go into Garuda, requires a little bit more execution and coordination, and then Titan, which really just kind of throws it all together. Titan's more like it's just a big, can you pay attention to things that are going around you check. If you can do it and you have decent DPS, then you can probably beat the fight. So, but they're pretty neat. They progress, from easier to harder.
So, do you think like in the nearest future we can actually see more and more people complete Coil of Behemoth? And how do you think how big do you think of an achievement will it be in the current state of the things?
Yeah, I think if anybody who completes Coil before Crystal Tower is released has done something pretty good. Just the fact that, you know, like I said, Coil Bahamut is based around item level 90 gear, which doesn't exist right now. And the Crystal Tower is supposed to be a stepping stone into Coil. Like I said earlier on, Yoshida said that less than 100 players would clear the Coil before 2.1 was released. And right now it seems like that's probably going to be the case because it's a very, very challenging instance as far as a gear check goes. And so I think it'll be a pretty good accomplishment for people that are able to clear it before 2.1 comes out.
I see. So I suppose like people are still of course exploring the game. There aren't that many level 50 characters, especially of course on non-legacy players servers, so not a lot of things happen just yet, and if they did, we certainly don't really know about them because they're not public. At least I'm checking Reddit and forums every day, and there hasn't been a lot of boasting about completing Call of Bahamut. Well, definitely I haven't heard anything about anyone clearing it yet, so I'm looking forward, maybe next week, who knows. Do you think someone will do it? Do you think your guild will do it by the end of the next week?
We'll see.
But just speculate, judging from the fact that you're already on the 4th level.
We'll see.
So modest, doesn't want to tell everyone that, yeah, of course will be that content too easy for us, too easy. So like I said, if you want to participate in the community, guys, just hit official forums, probably the best place to start. Unfortunately, you need to level up your character. That is an interesting restriction which you don't really know what to make of. Really don't know what to make of. It's probably in place to combat spam, but I haven't really seen other MMO forums being that much populated with spam. Have you?
The forums themselves, no, not too often.
Yeah. So actually, one thing that we haven't discussed yet. Have you noticed the influx of gold sellers in the game?
Yeah, just recently actually. I didn't receive a single gold till almost for the entire week. And then all of a sudden one day I started getting them every 10 seconds. It was insane.
Do you think they should like finally implement ignore on right click? Because right now you basically have to friggin' type the name of a character into the ignore bar, and that is really bothersome.
Yeah, they need a right click report and a right click ignore function for sure.
Definitely, they definitely do. So I think we should wrap things up. Do you have any final shout-outs? Anyone you want to mention something before we finish this show for today?
No, not really. Thanks for having me, though.
Well, seriously, I should thank you for coming because it was a great pleasure talking to you, and I hope we can do it weekly, you know. Be prepared. But anyway, guys, thank you for staying with Weekly Fantasy. It was just a pilot episode. Of course, not everything went as clean as it could have, but I still hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any ideas or suggestions, well, you know, there is a link to my stream as well as my Twitter. Make sure to hit me up and give your feedback if you liked it, if you disliked it, if you want to see something done differently. We're hoping to get this out every week, but it might not be possible. We'll see, but we're really hoping to do it every week. Because I'm pretty certain that from this point onward, the amount of things to discuss will only be picking up. Make sure to follow Urkuthi on his stream. The link is over there. I'm pointing at it right now. Follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, both at /dailypvp. I've also got a couple of YouTube channels where you can find PvP and PvE videos constantly growing, both at youtube.com/dailypvp and youtube.com/dailypve. Once again, it was flavored together with Rocothy, an amazing individual. He could have been Japanese, but unfortunately he's American. Not really fat though, so that's good. Not that I have anything against that whatsoever, but he's handsome and that's awesome. So thank you for staying with us throughout all this cast. It's been goddamn long, and I hope you're not sleeping yet, but you probably aren't. Everyone is waiting for the servers to get back up to actually verify whether or not 1017 has been fixed. So I'm just imagining these hundreds and hundreds of people actually fighting sleep, drinking something like tons of caffeine, only to actually confirm that they can finally log in. So I'm hoping to see you all in game, and definitely in the next episode of Weekly Fantasy. So see you all guys later. Say bye. What the hell? Why are you just staring at the screen? Okay, that's kind of an improvised bye. So, till next time. Wait a second, what the hell?